I've never worked with a nonprofit where they have surplus money sitting around and surplus time and staff sitting around. They always have more to do than they have
Mm,
time to do, and are always struggling for more capacity to carry out their missions. So when I saw AI and what's happening, the first thing I looked at is the efficiency aspect of using AI. That it could be used for some common day tasks that would save them significant amounts of time.
that spark of innovation, it's just waiting for the perfect combination of tools and talent to bring it to life. Welcome to Pitch, Build, Scale. I'm your host, Chris Hanson, a recovering startup founder, veteran SaaS marketer, turned dev tech enthusiast and growth specialist. Each episode, we connect with the builders, the visionaries, and the problem solvers who are redefining what's possible with today's technology and pioneering the websites, apps, and software products of tomorrow. These are the conversations that transform how we build, how we sell, and how we scale technology businesses in a world where the tech evolves by the minute. Ready to stay ahead of the curve? This is Pitch, Build, Scale. Hello and welcome to today's episode. We have a very exciting guest. For those of you just joining the podcast, we are Big North Marketing and specialize in helping dev shops and SaaS companies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your SaaS or dev business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us the word growth in the DMs. We're really excited to have today's guest. Chris Hanson is the co-founder of the Databank, a pioneer in hybrid custom SaaS solutions for the nonprofit sector. With a tech career spanning over 40 years, from building dial-up databases to developing AI-powered CRM bots, Chris has built one of the most trusted platforms for mission-driven organizations. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Chris. Happy to be here.
So I like to always start with your background and your journey. What first got you started in technology?
Wow. Okay. Okay. I'm digging way back. Well, I'll tell you, it goes back to my uncle who is a mechanical engineer, and he bought me for Christmas one year a Texas Instrument computer. It was a little tiny box that I plugged into, ran off a cassette tape for the programs, and I just found that really fascinating. That was the thing that kind of got me interested in technology and computers. When PCs came out in the 80s, I jumped pretty quickly and got on board with those. Subsequently, because I was working with nonprofits around fundraising activities, I started focusing more on technology for nonprofits and spent a good chunk of my career in the 80s and 90s doing consulting with nonprofits, primarily around technology. So it's just something I've been fascinated with my whole life. I'm not a programmer. I've tried programming. I built a couple websites back in the day, but thankfully I got that out of my system. So I'm a marketing guy. I just really am intrigued how technology can help organizations promote their brand and build support.
So you mentioned in our previous conversation about Databank actually growing out of a marketing company. Can you kind
Yeah.
of explain that journey and tell us how you ended up where you did?
Sure. So I was the principal at a consultancy in the 1990s. We ran direct mail telemarketing campaigns for mostly national nonprofit organizations. And one of the things that we did was build a database system internally, initially for us to be able to manage the information on our own direct marketing campaigns, right? Track response rates and those types of things. So built it with the ability for our clients to dial in via modem and use terminal emulation to access the database. And so, it from probably about 1992 was a hosted database system our clients could dial into. Uh, because of that and our work, that actually became a revenue stream of that consultancy. And then in 1997, we decided to split that consultancy off into three different companies. I took the database part of that, and that eventually became the data bank.
Okay. So was there a moment where you knew that you had something more than just an internal tool that you could actually build a business around what you were
Oh,
doing?
absolutely. I mean, so the first moment, of course, was when some of our clients first logged into the system and were able to access real time response rates to direct mail campaigns, those types of things. So that was very eye-opening for us, but also for our clients. The second was when we started to have nonprofit organizations contact us specifically wanting to be on that database platform. These were not clients that we had, we're doing direct mail for. It was purely through referrals from some of our existing clients when they had been asked by other nonprofits, well, how do you manage your information? How are you managing your data? So once we saw that, and like I said, that became what initially didn't start out as, but became a revenue stream for our consultancy.
Okay. Did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or was that something that came upon you once you saw the opportunity?
Yeah, came up on pretty early after I graduated college. I worked for a publishing company for a while, and that didn't work out. Tried working for another organization, that didn't work out. I think it probably dawned on me that maybe the best thing is to work for myself. And so, yeah, pretty early on, venture I had was a restaurant that I co-founded with another gentleman. That was a huge crash and burn venture. We lasted 6 months, totally undercapitalized,
Uh,
did all the things wrong that you can think about doing wrong in a startup, but invaluable lessons learned in that. And from there, I kind of went on a series of startups that I co-founded with other people through the 80s and the 90s. Um, just as I always enjoyed sort of the creative aspect of starting a business, taking an idea and bringing it to fruition, bringing it to market. I've done manufacturing companies, I've done consulting companies, never had stayed longer than 3 years with any of those startups until the Databank. And so, we started the Databank in 1998, and I'm still here having a great time. It certainly has been a different kind of entrepreneurial experience for me.
So, how did you find yourself in the social space and doing nonprofits?
Yeah, it was something that I think from early on in my life, I'm 67, almost 68 years old, so I wouldn't say I'm a child of the 60s, but certainly the 60s was a very experiential time for me growing up, and I had older brother, and kind of got involved in things like the environmental movement in the late 60s, was part of the first Earth Day and Walk for Mankind, so I kind of got the feeling of activism early on in my life, and that just kind of carried forward. I did a lot of work with religious communities early on, volunteering for them. I led youth retreats at a local retreat center, that type of thing. So that got me into sort of the social activism and something that I've just carried forward throughout my life. When we started the Databank, and I will say the consultancy I had before Databank was certainly had a social culture to it, but it
mm.
wasn't expressly built to be a social benefit company. When we started the Databank, that was one of our primary directives is we wanted a for-profit company with a social mission.
Okay. So, once you took over the database side of things and started building your own business, what was the process of turning that into its own business model? And where did you come up with kind of the combination of custom as well as prepackaged options? When did that become a part of your offering?
Yeah, so a couple things. I mean, I can kind of talk briefly about sort of the early beginnings of the data bank. And so we started in 98. For those of your audience old enough to remember, the late 90s was the internet boom. I mean, it was
Right.
just a crazy time in the space. And there were a couple other startups I was part of that, did some private equity stuff back in the 80s, but nothing like what was going on in the late 90s. I must have made 150, 200 pitches with the data bank over a course of a couple of years there in 98 and 99. There was so much money out there investing into, .com this, .com that. And my pitches usually would go really well when we, start out saying we're an online database company, and that was really intriguing. And then when I said our clients are nonprofits, well, that got rid of 90% of the investors. They're like, there's no money in nonprofits. And then when I further said, "And besides that, we're a for-profit company with a social vision," well, that eliminated pretty much everybody
Mm.
as far as investors. We did find four angels that eventually invested some money into the data bank, which which enabled us to get to the point where we were generating revenue. And it wasn't until 2000 when we landed a major contract with Sierra Club that we really got to a point where we were starting to make profit, but it was totally bootstrapped, unlike so many other .com companies. But our angels are still around and they still contact me frequently saying, how are things going? Wondering if we're going to get that investment back. So they've been great. But the reality is most of the ones they invested in besides the Databank are long gone, never resulted in anything. So we're still here, we're still kicking. As far as the hybrid software, that was something that really sort of evolved out of our work. We initially were focused on fundraising management, donor management software. We also did some work with political campaigns in that time as well. And probably around the mid 2000s, we really noticed that the competitive landscape for fundraising software had become oversaturated. There were so many companies in the market. Salesforce at that time was starting to take off, and they were offering free license for nonprofit organizations, specifically around their fundraising platform. So that's when we started thinking that we needed to look for some new direction. With the Databank, that fundraising was really just an oversaturated market. What else could we do? And over time, we had done some custom development on top of our SaaS platform for some clients. And, well, maybe that's a place that we should look to. And that's how we've pursued it. And it's been great.
So how much of what your company became was shaped by that first big client, the Sierra Club?
Well, that's a good question. I would say for maybe the first 10 years of the company, a lot. I mean, so we built an entire new platform, an action alert platform for the Sierra Club, where Sierra Club activists could go online and click a button to contact their elected representatives about a certain issue. And of course, that software now is prevalent. There's all sorts of companies that got into that. But that was, another quick step in our sort of groundbreaking in the early days of the company. And that sense of innovation that we had then has continued forward. You mentioned AI bots, and we early on in 2023, started taking a serious look at how we could leverage AI in our nonprofit CRM product for our clients, and that's really become a fun project to do. I mean, there's so much potential with AI, and one of the realities with nonprofit organizations is their adoption of technology lags behind just about every other sector out in the marketplace. And I mean, when we first started with the Databank and our nonprofit or fundraising software called DonorMax, our biggest hurdle was uh, answering the question of, well, if I move my data offsite, is it safe?
Mm.
Right. And that took maybe 4 or 5 years before that kind of flipped in the sector, whereas then it became like, well, that's what we want to do. And I feel kind of the same way with AI here in the nonprofit sector. It's taking some time for them to embrace the technology. There's a lot of hesitancy and concern, and certainly a lot of it justified with AI. But we're starting to see just in the last 6 months, a lot of our users start to use the tool much more. We're starting to get user support questions about things they can do with it. We're doing trainings with our users on the AI bot and getting lots of users to take advantage of that. So, I think in the next 6 months, we're going to see a pretty significant increase in usage in the nonprofit sector of AI technology.
So you were actually a relatively early adopter of AI when you launched your bot. So what attracted you to it? What did you see that made you think this is a good fit for what we're doing?
So I'll go back to the early startup of the Databank and how we started the Databank because I think it's relevant to that question, Chris. What I saw back in 1997 with the internet coming back is an opportunity to provide nonprofits with good technology and share the costs across many organizations, the infrastructure costs. So that's what I really saw as the benefit of what's now become SaaS. I mean, back in the day, it was application service provider. I mean, there was a lot of different terminologies, but being able to provide a top level software to organizations where the infrastructure costs were shared. We could offer something to nonprofits for less cost than an in-house solution was for them. And I see that because efficiency, cost effectiveness is always critical for nonprofit organizations. I've never worked with a nonprofit where they have surplus money sitting around and surplus time and staff sitting around. They always have more to do than they have
Mm.
time to do, and are always struggling for more capacity to carry out their missions. And so when I saw AI and what's happening, the first thing I looked at is the efficiency aspect of using AI, that it could be used for some common day tasks that would save them significant amounts of time, things like helping to draft some email solicitation copy or create some images for a blog post or their website or those types of things. Some of those sort of low-hanging fruits of AI. But now what we're seeing is not only is it great for those types of things, but because we've trained our bot on the Databank's data structure and field naming conventions, those types of things, clients are using it to search through their data much faster, more effectively, compile data in different ways than they have before. And then the next step is doing data analysis, which
Mm.
when I show that to clients, it honestly completely blows them away that you can run a fundraising report or do a lifetime value analysis on your donors in a matter of seconds, where historically it's taken hours to do that type of thing. I mean, it's really impressive.
So it definitely seems like the adoption is picking up speed with them. Would would you agree?
Yes, yeah, it is. Like a lot of things that we've experienced over the 26 plus years of the data bank, the proof is kind of in the pudding when you can show people directly how this works rather than just talking about it or having them read something about it. Being able to demonstrate its usage directly for them really helps them to understand the benefits of using this technology and then to take the time to learn how to use it. I mean, like any technology, we stress that you have to develop the skill to use it. We do trainings on prompt writing because of course writing effective prompts is the key to using these AI bots. If you don't know how to write prompts, you're not going to be happy with the results you get, and oftentimes, unfortunately, when that happens, they just go away. They don't use the technology anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you still seeing some level of skepticism, or
Oh
what
yeah.
are the worries that you still hear about AI?
Yeah, so the top worry is security. What's going to
Mm.
happen with my information? Are these bots going to take it and send it out to the world? Those types of things. Then the second worry is that they're going to get bad results. That the responses from these bots aren't going to be trustworthy. And so again, I mean, those are valid concerns. We certainly took all of those concerns very seriously and take them very seriously, which is why we really decided to develop our own bot rather than integrating somebody else's bot into our system because we could control a lot of the things. Then we can control what data the bot has access to, how it's used, those types of things.
Yeah. How have you found the response when you try to do education around prompting? Does that make them typically more excited about working
Oh,
with
yeah.
it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely does. And we don't do it for our users. We started, oh geez, over a year and a half ago doing some webinars, prospecting webinars, kind of out to the general nonprofit community about prompt writing. And those have consistently been getting very good response uh, from people.
Yeah, excellent. So you've been at this for over 2 decades now. What drives you to keep innovating at this stage in your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, there's a couple things. I mean, personally, I like learning. I like learning new things. I'm a lifelong learner. As we've talked about, I've been interested in technology for a long time.
Mm.
Technology just fascinates me because of what it can do, what the opportunity is, what the potential is there. So that's part of it. But the second thing is finding more ways to help our clients be successful. That probably was the primary thing that got me so interested in AI early on is I saw the potential of how this could benefit our clients in the work they're doing.
So as someone who's been through a number of these technology cycles all the way back to the internet basically starting, and then you've got the mobile revolution, you got social media coming on the scene. How do you compare what we're seeing with AI to some of those previous changes or evolutions in technology?
Yeah, I talk about this when I do these webinars, and I talk about three sort of transformational points in technology in my experience. The first being personal computers, back in the 80s. Because, I mean, when I first went to college, of course, you're working off a mini computer, or even back to high school, we had a little teletype machine down by the math department that we could hook into the University of Minnesota's mainframe to do stuff. But when it became possible for even small organizations to have a personal computer in their office and manage data locally, that revolutionized fundraising in the fundraising marketplace. So I saw that, and that was very transformational. Of course, the internet, hugely transformational, changed how all of us access information, use information. Yes. Now, then comes along AI, and from my perspective, this is the most radical transformative technology of all of them, just because of the level of adoption with this technology. I mean, when ChatGPT came out, like in 1 month, it went to like 100 million users. I mean, it was just
Yeah. Yeah.
much more rapid adoption than any other technology out there. And then how fast it's spread out to every aspect of our lives, both on a personal level and a consumer level and a business level. It's just changed things so quickly. And I feel like we're just tapping, the very first parts of what this technology is eventually going to do.
Yeah, you talk about the amount of investment during the dot-com bubble. I mean, that's dwarfed by what we're seeing
Yes.
today with it.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting, unicorns, billion-dollar companies in a matter of months with some of these. If they come out with something new in the AI field, and it's like boom, all that money is just flowing right to them.
Are you leveraging AI internally for anything related to building the product? I know vibe coding, you might be familiar with that. The idea of AI helping code and build things. Are you guys utilizing any of that internally?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, of course, my business partner, Mark, is the CTO. He's the technology brains behind the company. And so, from very early on, as we were talking about this, he saw that potential and started using it. And yeah, all of our developers are using it. We're also using it on the tech support side. We've trained it on our support materials. So now it becomes sort of the first level of support for our use. I mean, the technology has really infiltrated our business very quickly in a good way, in a really good way.
So you've been at the Databank working on this company, this project for almost 30 years now. What do you hope that the Databank's legacy will be when you eventually move on from it?
Well, I think the legacy is the work of our clients, that we've in some part, small part, have helped facilitate our clients to affect positive change in their communities, to help people that are in need, to help keep our environment clean. I mean, that for me is the legacy of our company. I'll relay one quick story for you. Um, so I mentioned the action alert platform we built for the Sierra Club, and we had a company here in Minnesota, or an organization here called Minnesota Environmental Consortium. It's a consortium of 60 some environmental groups here in Minnesota, and they signed on to this system early on as well. And the first time they used it, back in the day, it was sending fax messages. It wasn't sending emails or text messages. It was sending fax to the various congressional chambers. And they used it for an action alert here in Minnesota. Within 2 hours of sending out that email asking their members to send a fax message to their elected representatives, within 2 hours, someone from the House chamber here in Minnesota called the organization and said, "What's going on? You broke our first fax machine. Now we're on our second fax machine. They were getting flooded with fax machines. And this alert was advocating for an additional 65 million in funding for various environmental issues in Minnesota, which passed overwhelmingly. And that's a story that still I tell people that, and a lot of people now don't even know what fax machines are, but it just showed the power of leveraging technology to be a voice for people to help affect change in communities.
Yeah, now we're gonna have a flood of chatbots messaging our congressman asking for things.
Well, and of course, what government loves to do is they love to put roadblocks up
Yeah.
to stop that. I mean, that we've dealt with that over the years where,
Mm.
once, representatives started having email addresses and we started flooding their email boxes and they stopped that from happening, and they required people to go to forums. And so we figured out the technology to automatically submit to those forms. It's been kind of this constant battle as far as access and, letting people connect with their elected representatives in an easy way.
Yeah. Yeah. So pulling out your crystal ball, where do you think nonprofit tech is headed over the next 3 to 5 years? And how is that going to be impacted by AI and other tools that come out in the future?
Well, I think that we've seen I mean, I've seen certainly over the last 20 years that nonprofit organizations out of need have become much more professionalized. Leadership, have become much better in experience and education about how to run organizations. They become much more professional as far as how to secure funding and those types of things. So technology has become a critical, important aspect of the nonprofit sector as far as how they leverage it. I think that what we'll see is as nonprofits understand the efficiency benefit of AI, that they're going to jump on board really quickly. And one of the nice things about AI is that from a cost standpoint, it's relatively cheap. At
Hmm.
least today it is, all right? We don't know what's
Hmm.
going to happen kind of moving forward, but it's a relatively inexpensive technology for organizations to leverage, which of course is great for the nonprofit sector. So, yeah, overall, as far as AI, Chris, I got to say, I just don't know. I mean, I think the reality is I'm kind of at an age where my vision forward is a little bit limited, and I come to technology, something that I used in my, formative years. Unlike current generations, I think, as this technology grows and some of those generations get into, more places of leadership, we're going to see some incredible things happen, but I have difficulty envisioning them.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think that's necessarily an age thing. Even for someone my generation, it's considering where we were just 2 years ago or 3 years ago with the AI. It's very hard to project more than 6 months down the road because of the rate of change that we're seeing.
Oh my gosh. This is something that I talk about too, is for people looking at using this technology is you commit to this, you're committing to ongoing learning. I mean, we use OpenAI models as the back end for our bot.
Mm.
And, our developers, I mean, we get updates like every day, sometimes multiple times a day from OpenAI about their models and new models coming out. I mean, we just moved from, for instance, we were using OpenAI's Dolly model to do our visual stuff, but then they opened up image generation through their regular 4.0 model,
Mhm.
and so we've transferred over to that now, and it's just a constant evolution.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, and it'll be very interesting to see where things go from here.
Yep.
Well, Chris, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can our listeners learn more about you and get in touch with your team at the Databank?
Hey, just go to our website, thedatabank.com. That's a place. I mean, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. You can look there. We have a YouTube channel, and you can look there as well. But our website's the best spot, or you can just email me at chris@thedatabank.com. Happy to chat with you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you to everyone for listening. Please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And as always, keep pitching, keep building, and keep scaling.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pitch, Build, Scale. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast provider so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next time.